Hello again, this is Jasmina, and in this video, it's basically the second part about setting up your Chi chart. It's a second video. Now, there are two important pieces of information that you need to properly determine your house's Chi chart. And I'm going to cover these two important pieces. The third is your period, but that is determined irrelevant of this that I'm showing you here. Now, the one is the house or the apartment or condo's facing direction. For a house, that's pretty easy. And for part of this, you actually have to know two different facing directions for an apartment or condo. One is the building facing, and the other is the unit facing. And I'll try to make this clear as I go along. The other is the main door sector, and this is the one that's typically harder. Now, I do have a separate video, Finding Your True Facing Direction, I think that's what it's called, that gives you the direction to find your house or your total apartment building's facing direction. And you should follow that if you need to do that. And here we also include the discussion about changing from the UTM North, which is what's on your survey or what's on Google Maps, and your true north direction. Many times there's not much difference, but sometimes there's enough of a difference, especially when you're living farther north, that it's really important. And of course, I do not advocate using compass north because that can be very far off. So to determine the main door sector requires floor plans. You can often get these from the government agency that deals with permitting for buildings. You can usually call your city or county, wherever you happen to live, whatever the equivalent is, and ask what department can I find my floor plans. Now, some countries might not have this. Some cities might not have this, but in the developed world, they will. You can do this by hand, but it takes quite a bit of work. But I've done this remotely with people, and it can be done. It took a couple iterations to get it right, but we got it. Now, this method, this video basically covers determining the main door sector because you already find your facing direction here. The first step you need to do is, once you get your floor plan, you need to what they call square it off, even though it's usually not a square, it's usually a rectangle. But if there is a garage, any part of the garage that doesn't already fall within the squared off living portions of the house doesn't count. So in general, you don't count the garage. But there are times you do, and I'll discuss this a little bit. And it's usually not the entire garage. It could be a portion of the garage. Now, any protrusion, because most houses aren't perfectly square or perfectly rectangular, they often have a little protrusion here or there. Any protrusion that is more than 1/3 the length of that given side, that also needs to be included in the squared off boundary. And I'll show you what I mean. So this is a real house. One floor of a real house. Now, we do have a protrusion here for the powder room, and we have a garage over here. But there's no living space back here. The living space is all included here. Now, this is included because this is more than 1/3 this side. But the powder room any extra isn't included because this distance here is much less than 1/3 this distance. And this distance here is much less than 1/3 this distance. So this is how you square off this particular house. The next step is you do a crisscross. You go from corner of your squared off lines. And where they meet, that is the center of your house. And this is a crucial thing. Everything gets measured from the center of your house. The next step is that you need to mark your facing direction. almost always in your floor plan, your house will be set up with respect to most houses have at least one 90-degree angle. It will be set up with that 90-degree angle being parallel to the bottom and one side of your piece of paper. And you would be taking a line straight down. If in this case, this is where the door is, this is the facing direction. So we're taking a line straight down because this is 90 degrees to this, and this is the facing direction. And you kind of have to determine that. Sometimes it's a little hard. Oftentimes it's not too hard. And if this is an apartment, you're taking the facing direction of your apartment building, because that is usually what you do from the satellite. Now sometimes if you've got a real floor plan, you'll have a north arrow somewhere, but this is UTM north. Now if you find that there's very little difference, this will be the correct direction, but you somehow have to transfer it here to the center of your house. And there's an easier way to do it than trying to do that, unless you can get it in the computer. If you get this in the computer and have the right program, this is easy to do from a actual floor plan scanned in. But that most people don't have the right software. So the next step is we need to determine where true north is. So in this case, we have done the work from the satellite and have determined that the true facing direction of this house is 170 degrees. So we need to mark 170 degrees from the facing direction. And we basically have a good idea where north is, because you might say, well, why is it not this way? Well, it is this way because we always measure 0 degrees here. If it were over here, it would be 300 some degrees. So it is easy to get this right. And you kind of basically know where north is anyway, if you look at the satellite. So this is 170 degrees. And we just mark a tick mark and just draw that out. This is true north. This had a correction of about 1 degree. It didn't make a huge difference, but it makes some difference. So this is why I always look at true north. Now, once you've done that, you've got your facing direction, you've got your true north, then you need to find the center of your door with the door in the closed position. And you just mark that. Then you draw a line from the center of the house where these two lines cross to the center of the door. And you measure this. It happens to be this angle. Now, if you're using a protractor, you're not going to get this accurate. But this is pretty precise because this is in the computer. And I'm pretty sure this angle is quite accurate. But if you can get it to 155, that's good enough. That's close enough. To be able to find out what sector this door is in, you need to use the 24 mountain pie chart, or you use a table. But it has to be down to the subsector, not the large sector like the facing direction. This has to be down to the subsector. So here's the table. You can take a screenshot. And remember, it was 155. So we can scan through this. Where is 155? It's right here. So this means it's in Southeast 3. And that's the main door sector. So this is what it looks like with the 24 mountain ring on it. And we are lining up the north with that we have determined, and we line up the chart with that north. And we see again that the door is in Southeast 3. Now you notice that it's not the entire door in Southeast 3, but it's like 7/8. And it's very clearly that the center of the door is in this sector. Now, if you happen to have a case where, let's say it wasn't quite like this, and this door, the center of the door lined up between South 1 and Southeast 3, that means your house would not have a Cheeman chart. Again, this is not terrible, but it does not allow you to tap into certain energies, which can be quite useful. So, it's not ideal for that to happen. But most places, this doesn't happen. It's usually one or the other. Now, if you go back to that, the Finding Your Chi chart within the hour chart video, the first one in this series, you can determine which is the correct hour. Now, it does take some work, but you can do it. And you don't have to pay anybody to do it, except for you have to pay a relatively small price to some place like Chinese Metasoft website so that you can access the hour charts. But this will be the cheapest way to do it if you want to do it yourself. Now, this house happens to be a period 8 house that faces south, and it actually faces south 1, if you want to be exact. And its door sector is southeast 3, which puts it in the group 5 group of door sectors. And if you do this, you can actually find out what dates you need to look at or date ranges for this house. And when you do it, you can actually find that this house chart is going to be this date at sometime between 1 and just before 3 a.m. And I usually put in 30 because it's just easy. And that will give you your house chart. And this is what it'll look like. Now, in the stuff that comes from the software, or if you get the Joey app book, north is always down. So you have to rotate it. So that it does require a little bit of work to get this to be correct. And you just have to be careful. That's all. And of course, most of us in the Western world is used to north is up, and so it gets a little crazy. So this is what we have. This isn't the only thing that you look at, though. But this part affects part of your life. This is the Chi chart affects part of your life. The flying star chart affects something else. The purple white does another thing, and the annual star is another layer on top. So a complete analysis, you have to balance these things. And the flying star chart and the purple white chart for a house is the primary stuff. For an apartment, it's the Chi and the purple white, which is more complicated than a house. But you have to look at this in a whole. But they don't interact too much with each other. That is, the flying star chart does what it does. It affects your interaction or your opportunities from the outside. The Chi chart affects how you feel, how your life is going, how fulfilled you feel, that kind of thing. And the purple white affects or can affect your emotions, how you feel in that particular sector that given year, because the purple white chart changes every year. And the annual star chart is very similar in effect to the purple white. But it usually isn't so worried about your emotions. It's more worried about what things can happen in that sector. So they affect different things, but you look at it as a whole. So this is the real art of analyzing Feng Shui, is to be able to look at it as a whole instead of just focusing on one thing. Now, this particular house, which is a south-facing house, it's not really appropriate for the West group people living there, the 2 adults. They do have their bed. They've chosen to put their bed in their good direction, and so that's good. But they've got 2 things. They've got the door facing and the house facing. That's not in a good direction for them. And one, it's particularly bad. But that doesn't mean this is a disastrous house. Things can be modified. One of the, let's say, the easiest things to do in one sense is to move the door direction. And I'll show you how that's done. Now, the advantage of this is you don't have to do anything differently. It's automatic. You automatically get the good energy coming in if your door is in the right direction. You can still get this. You just have to change your habits, and you have to be careful of how you're sitting within the room when you're doing anything important. So it requires changing habits, and most people have a hard time doing this. But if you can get it going, you can get much of the same good energies. It just takes a bit longer for it to work. And it's not so consistent because it's not automatic. Now, what I recommended they do is there was a set of 3 windows right here, and that means there probably is a large beam already existing in this location, and so this can be done easily. This can be that is, you don't have to pay for a new beam to go across here to span this opening. And when we look at the outside, there's also good reasons to do it this way too. But this door faces southwest. It faces in this sector. You just kind of have to move that over. It's a little difficult to see, but we know this faces southwest 1. Now, southwest 1 or southwest is a good direction for the West Group people. So this automatically gives them much better energy. It can't face southeast because that's not a good direction for them. So it has to, in this case, if it's going to be along this wall, it has to be in southwest 1. Well, in southwest anyway. Or it could even be in west. That is possible too. But this sector now has moved. It is now in southeast 2, but that is still part of the group 5. So nothing changes in the house in terms of the flying star chart or the Chi-Men chart. And the purple-white is also not affected. So this all is good. This means that you don't have to do a whole new analysis. And so and we do want to keep the door in this range if we can, at least for the next 60 years, because this happens to have a very good star for a main door. So this is why we kept it close to where it was, but it's no longer in line with the steps, which is what it used to be. And that in general is not a good place for a main door. It just really shouldn't be there. But again, it might not be able to be moved because of various reasons. So, but the biggest difference here, nothing else changes except for now we're directly tapping into a good direction for the 2 West Group people living here. So this is the real reason why this is recommended. Now, the overall Sanher Chi of this area is good. And so moving isn't necessary and it's not even desirable. Now, even if they cannot move the door, like I said, there are other things that they can do by positioning themselves in a certain direction as they work that can really help them. But again, it forces them to modify their habits, and it's not as consistent as a door move like this, because a door move, this is 24/7, they're getting good energy. So now I'm going to talk about the Chi-Men entities. And so this can help you understand what you're looking at once you find your Chi-Men chart. And basically, the only 2 things I'm really going to cover here is the gods or the deities or spirits, depends on who you're working with, what they're called, and the door. Now, the door seems to always be the door, but they'll be located in certain places and it's not difficult to understand. But the deity, it governs influences from what is normally termed the heaven realm, that is something from the universe beyond the earth, and certainly beyond man. So this can be very powerful. The door helps govern the appropriate actions to take to fully utilize whatever sector that given door is in your place. So doors or actions, deities or gods are energies that are influencing you or can help you. So this is the table for the deities. And depending on who you're working with, sometimes they call the chief the leader. So the hook and tortoise are interchangeable, so are the phoenix and tiger. The chief is one of the best sectors in general, but you still have to be cognizant of what door it is. This can allow you to achieve your dreams. It's the most powerful one, and you can just be in this location and think about what you want to accomplish, and just think about it, and the chief will help lead you to make the right decisions so it can happen. 9 heavens is second strongest, and it can also allow you to achieve your dreams, but you have to approach it in a slightly different manner. When you're in that location and you're thinking about what you want, when you're thinking about your dreams, it's not just thinking, you actually have to envision it in your mind. You have to envision it actually happening. And when you do that, 9 heavens can help you make the right decisions so you can make it happen. 9 earth is actually good to be in if you're involved with any kind of money matters in general. It's good for property accumulation specifically. It's generally good for wealth, because when you accumulate property in general, you become more wealthy. Of course, you have to be careful. You can't overextend yourself, but this can really help. Harmony, pretty obviously, it's good for relationships of all sorts, inside and outside the house, and it's good for family. The moon is sometimes called darkness, but and there's some people give a negative annotation to this, but in a house, it's a really good location to learn something, to do research, to gain knowledge. If you can put your kids here when they're studying in this sector, it's usually quite good, as long as they can sit in a good direction for themselves. The snake, it can be quite negative if it's used wrongly, but it's useful for some things. For example, you can go to the sector if you've lost something important. You can go to the sector and you can, relax, concentrate, and say, help me remember where I placed that object. And it can help you. Now, achievement divination can also help you find this, but you have to pay for that, or you have to take a lot of classes to learn how to do this, because it's quite complicated. But you can do this, and if it's really important, it might be worth it. Now, the hook or tortoise, it's good for influencing people. Again, you can use this in a negative fashion, but that tends to turn around and bite you in the end. So it's, in general, better not to use it negatively. But this can be really good if you see someone who you care about and you want to help. And this can help you find the right words so that you can influence them to help them. But you have to want to be helping them. If you actually want to hurt them, maybe you help yourself but hurt them, then it usually doesn't come out well in the long run. Short run it may work, but in the long run it'll be bad. Now, the tiger and phoenix is good for courage. So if you want to do something, but you just can't seem to get the courage to do it, you want to be in that room and think about it. And this can help you get enough courage to actually go and do it. Now, here are the doors. This is the table for the doors. The life sector is obviously pretty good. It'll help you decide to do the right actions to accomplish your goals. Now, the death door sounds terrible. It doesn't mean physical death. It means the end of something. So therefore, it's very good for eliminating bad habits. But otherwise, it's in a sector that you generally want to avoid doing anything important in. But this can be even in a guest room. It's okay. It can be your laundry room, your bathroom. It doesn't matter. The open door is really good for career. So if you can have your home office here and it has a good deity, it's great. The close or delusion, depending on who you're talking to, this is good for research, and also it's good for keeping hidden from negative people and negative attention. If you're living in a, let's say, a not the world's greatest neighborhood, if you have the delusion door in the sector where you have your main door, you are a bit less likely to be broken into, because people who are looking to break into houses may look at your house and just say, I think that other house was better, and they'll go to the other house. And it keeps you from being noticed. And there are times when you want to do that. So this can help you keep you from being blamed too much for a mistake you might do at work too. I mean, this can actually be used. Now, you shouldn't be totally hiding, and if you're caught, own up to it. But this can help reduce the negativity that might come from mistakes. Now, the fear door does tend to create fear and reclusiveness. It tames you down. And this can be useful. In general, it's not great. But if you're somebody who has a hard time not saying the wrong thing, that you find yourself just saying the wrong thing when you don't mean to, if you have an important conversation coming up, if you go to the location where you have the fear door, it can help you think a little bit more before you speak. And so you're more likely to say what you really mean and not hurt somebody else's feelings. So this is a good door to use at the appropriate time. Now, the harm door is great for someone in sales, and if you're selling from home, it's fantastic. If you've got a small business that's run from your house and one of your family members is the one in charge of sales, this is where they would be. You can be in a different part. Maybe you're going to be in the open part instead. You'll be in that part of the house. But it can be used negatively, and I hope you don't, because this again will turn around and bite you anyway. So use it positively. The scenery door is excellent for having your work noticed by important people, people that can change your life. So, for example, if you were to have the chief and the scenery door at your front door or in your home office, that would be fantastic, because this will help your work get noticed by the important people, and they'll be impressed, and it's very good. Of course, assuming you've done good work. Now, the rest door is great for family to get together and become closer. Now, the door and the deity do have interactions. And your house will have what it has, and there's nothing you can do about it. It has what it has. If you're lucky, you may get some really good combinations, and I'm going to talk about a few of those. If you have your main door located where the chief in open or chief in life is, that's usually the best. But chief in scenery is good. Chief in delusion can even be good, depending where you're located. So this is one of the important places you want to look. Now, you could also have chief in death, which is not so good. So this is something you have to be careful about. And if that's the case, you might want to, if that's where your main door is located, you might want to move it if you can. If it's an apartment, you move. Or a condo, you can sell it and let somebody else have the trouble. Now, the moon and the combination of moon and delusion door, it's excellent for research and academic pursuits, which oftentimes is also at least partially done at home. Most of the time people bring their work home when they're involved in academics because it's your life. Now, however, when it comes to publishing or getting this known, what you've done, you don't want to be in this room because it helps you stay hidden. Now, if you're in academics, it's publish or perish. So if you're going to publish, move to a room with the scenery door. That's better, as long as it has a decent deity. It's not one of the nasty ones. Now, the Harmony and Rest door is an excellent location for a family room or a game room or a rec room, someplace where the family gets together. Very, very good location. You could even use it, for home gym if you're trying to get everybody involved in being more athletic. But, that's probably one of the lesser good options. But it's really good for spending time together with your family in a relaxed situation. The 9 Earth combined with the open or life door is really good for people dealing with property. That can be real estate agents, architects, anyone involved in the construction, from the general contractor down to the guy who digs up the ground for the foundation. It doesn't matter. The roofer, everybody, anybody involved with construction. This is a good place. If your main door is located there, your bedroom's located there. For, let's say, the architects, if your office is located there, all good. Of course, if you're in construction, really physically in construction, you're going to be on site. So, it doesn't matter which room it is. It still helps. Actually, it does. I mean, that's a good place for your bedroom. So that's basically it. Now, I haven't covered all the different doors and deities, but you can kind of get the idea. You just think about it. You should be able to understand what's going on. And again, the one room you really want to avoid spending a lot of time in or having an important thing is, like the main door, is where the death door is. That is one of the worst ones, because that tends to lead to kind of stumbling blocks and so forth. But if that's not in an important room, like a bathroom, you're fantastic. You're good. I'd like to thank you for watching.